Welcome back to Out of Touch, or maybe welcome in for the very first time if you happen to stumble upon this random podcast out there in the stratosphere.
Wouldn't that
Spotify,
be awesome?
YouTube. Do what, Mitchell?
Wouldn't that be awesome?
It would be awesome. I mean, maybe you just find yourself in a daze where you're feeling like an out of touch human being, and you're like, man, where can I find a group of dudes that are just going to sit there and talk about the nonsense from their life? And you just, start typing some stuff in, and you see the little brown background, the little finger says out of touch, and here you are. Welcome in. This is John and Mitchell. Usually Dustin Schuette's here too, and I expect him to be here at some point unless he tells me otherwise. But you got us two right now.
Yeah, this is it. This is all we need, really.
It is all we need. And we've actually, Mitchell and I have been talking. We talked for about maybe 10 or 15 minutes before we even started recording. And there were moments of that conversation where I wish we were already rolling, because we were getting into really a myriad of different stuff that I don't know if we're going to necessarily revisit right now. Maybe we will if it comes up organically. But yeah, sometimes I just love the conversations. And that's one thing too I love about this podcast. And it happens more so whenever we're doing these duo moments in the episodes. We just end up talking about life and kind of the deep questions that obviously neither of us have the answer to, but we just kind of, we let it out into the ether, whoever might be listening out there, our thoughts. And normally it's just kind of a cluster, as this kind of little monologue is right now. If that's even what you want to call it. And we just sit there and think and figure out things as we go sometimes.
Yeah. And I've got all kinds of thoughts today. We were talking, and this is, I guess, not organically because I'm bringing it up immediately, but
and that's fine.
I have a feeling that sometimes I get into like the worldly way of thinking, and I try to feel like I'm, I don't know, wise or something, or I'm trying to get wise, or I'm trying to listen to people that have different ideas from me or pose interesting questions. And when I have long drives like I did today, I had to go to Grand Rapids and back, which is about 4 hours each way. So I had plenty of time in the car to listen to thought-provoking questions. So I've got some things that I'm sure we'll touch on, not right away because it's a little deep right away. But
I know sometimes you try to ease in, but it's tough, especially, again, maybe there's a better way. Maybe sometimes I should just, as soon as I log on, just hit that record button and don't even like play the intro music and just see what happens. Can you even tell right now, like on your screen, Mitchell, like if we're recording, or do you just like trust that we're recording type of a thing?
I've got a little red thing in the top left.
Okay. So you would be aware. It's not like it would be hidden or anything. But again, maybe that's a little deceptive. Maybe I shouldn't do that.
Oh, I don't care. I don't. Everything that I say, whether we're recording or not, I don't care if it gets out there. I don't care.
So how you feeling? I guess we'll just start there. How are you feeling on a Tuesday we're recording this?
Yeah, dude, I'm fine. Stressed. You kind of feel, I don't know, as you get it, like, and I don't have any kids in school yet, but it feels like the fall, end of year, there's a lot more pressure at work. It's about to get cold. You got to make sure everything's right in your house before the cold comes. Just feels like life gets a little bit harder as you get into the fall. There's more responsibilities. More things going on. We've got a vacation that you're trying to pay for in November, and it just feels like a lot going on right now. And
is that the Barstool Classic that you go to every year?
Yeah. We're going out for a week this year, which will be a lot of fun. So it's a fun thing and will be awesome. It'll be Maggie's first trip that's longer than, I guess we went to Michigan. Yeah. So 3 hours, and this will be a plane ride. So it could get a little bit chaotic, but it should be a lot of fun too.
Well, good. And I know you're obviously a big golfer, so that's obviously why you go to this each and every year. I remember you had quite the tale to tell last time you went down, but I'm sure you'll have a whole new set of adventures to kind of elaborate on once you return from
Hopefully the dog is not there. My partner's girlfriend is back, and dog lives at their house, but I don't think they're staying with us. So
that's right. I remember that. What was the dog's name again that took a little nip?
I don't know what the dog's name was. I don't care what this dog is dead to me. It's 3
If you happen to miss that, and you don't want to find, because I couldn't tell you which podcast number it's on. You can go to our TikTok page at Out of Touch Media or Out of Touch Podcast. I can't remember exactly what the at name is, but it's one of the clips. Mitchell tells a story on how that went down, where he kind of got. Would you say it was an attack, or was it more so of just an encounter?
Oh, it was 100% an attack. Did you see that?
Okay,
I was gushing blood.
it's been a bit
Someone
since
bit
I've
my
heard the
arm off.
story.
Yeah, I still have a massive scar on my arm. I needed stitches badly. I bled for a day and a half straight.
Did you get stitches? I don't remember you getting stitches, but again,
No,
you don't have
I
to tell me
should've.
every detail of your life.
No, I did not get stitches, and for another reason, we had to go into the hospital the next day, and the doctor was like, "You probably should have got stitches on that. Why did you not come see us?" And there was a lot of reasons, variety of reasons. We had been on the golf course on vacation, so you can discern where I was at mentally. Going to the doctor was a lot lower on the priority list than going out to Saltwater Cowboy. So,
that's funny. Oh man. Did you know that a couple of days ago, Mitchell, was the 10-year anniversary of when U2 tried to, not even tried, they successfully did something really weird when they automatically, I guess, uploaded their new album onto everybody's iPhone who had one. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember thinking, and so what? This was 10 years ago, you said? So I would have been
10 years ago, a couple of days ago. I don't remember the exact date, but I saw something pop up and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
So I would have been 20. And I remember thinking that people were not nearly as freaked out as they should have been that this was possible. It seemed like it was talked about for an hour, and then we went right back to our day.
Because everybody, for the most part, was just pissed. Not even really, I mean, pissed depending on who you asked, but annoyed more so by the fact that they were just like, I don't want this album on my, playlist, whatever it may be. They might not be fans of the band U2. And I'm sure U2 fans, they were just like, okay, you made my life a little bit easier. I don't have to download it myself. But everybody else was just sitting there like, okay, what's the point in this? But the bigger picture is, how do they get that ability? How does Apple or iTunes, whatever it may be, get that ability to just hack, not even hack. Is that the best word to say, Mitchell? To be able to get into everyone's phone and just put the album on there without getting anybody's permission. That's the bigger picture with all of this, right?
Yes, that's what freaked me out. That's actually funny. I was waiting for my meeting in Grand Rapids and watched this video of hacker, basically, not someone that works with Anonymous, but someone that's very familiar with IP addresses and how to manipulate them. And so he's in this interview, and the guy interviewing him is like, so tell me, like, how easy is it for you to just access what you want to access? And the guy says, well, let me give you an example. So I see you have the Wi-Fi. You have Wi-Fi in here. This is your Wi-Fi. And he goes, yeah, do you need the code? And the hacker guy goes, nope. This is all your information. Like, he, in 2 seconds, without any like plugged in thing, there's no extra chip. He just goes through this little device that as soon as he clicks on the Wi-Fi, it puts in the hacking information to get the password, and then from the password pulls his IP address, which pulls everything else, all of his personal information that's stored on his Google, everything. And he just had it in 8 seconds. So that's the world that we currently live in. And it's funny that, I mean, I'm cool with it. I have all my passwords saved. It's the price that you pay for convenience, I guess. Whether
it's almost like I heard somebody say this the other day, not about this specifically, but it reminds me of it. It's like, so you have a door to your house, you lock it, but that doesn't mean you're going to keep a burglar out. It just keeps honest people honest. Same thing with your Wi-Fi password. There are people who are smart enough to get into your Wi-Fi if for some reason they had an actual reason to. It just, again, keeps honest people honest.
Yeah, I think the main thing is what you said right before, what keeps honest people honest is, like, if they had a reason to. I think we all operate under the assumption that, like, who cares? Our stuff doesn't matter. At least I do. Like, okay, someone knows my address. Okay, cool. That doesn't bother me. What, are they going to come and steal my shoes. Like I don't have anything of value, like crazy value, but you do. You have all kinds of stuff in here. And we are actually gosh. We were reminded of this last week. I think last week. Middle of the night. Um Laura is doing what she has to do, breastfeeding and everything, and it's like 3 a.m. Just like every night, doing what she has to, comes back to bed, goes to sleep. I go out the next morning and my car has been kind of rummaged through. And some stuff's not where I left it, but it doesn't look like anything's taken. So I don't even think anything of it. I leave, I come back, and Laura texts me that our neighbors right next door had a garage camera. They had accidentally left their garage door open. And these two guys, grown men, walked into their garage, one of them with a gun, into their garage. The door, probably garage door to the house, is probably open. They say they never lock it. So all they have to do is open the door and they're in. And they went through our stuff. They went through every house, and it was opportunistic thieves. It was just they were looking for stuff that was unlocked and seeing what they could take. But that's 30 feet from my front door. So you think about it in that aspect, like, yeah, it matters to protect all your stuff. Like, to think a little bit more consciously. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to, but I should. We lock our doors now and get a ring or whatever. But when it comes to the internet, it's funny. People just, like, I don't even lock my stuff. I just have it completely unlocked for my convenience. Like, do you want to save this password? Absolutely.
And same thing, like my
website.
phone, I've always had the little pattern thing. You remember the little, it's like 9 dots and you just make a little pattern. That's how you unlock it. Like, that's just, again, it's just another example of it keeps honest people honest. If anybody, if the government, it doesn't even have to be the government. If somebody who, like I said, somebody smart, whoever it may be, wants to access your stuff, they're going to find a way to do it. And I guess really the moral of all of this is there's no reason to live in fear because there's nothing we can do anyway. We don't truly have any control over people who decide to do that type of stuff. You can, be smart about it because, again, opportunistic thieves like you're talking about, I mean, if you happen to, let's just, you mentioned your car being unlocked. Like, what if you had a gun in there? I don't know if you carry or not. I don't carry. But if you're a carrier and somebody, just grabs your pistol, I mean, that's somebody who's got a weapon now. And that's just, I mean, who's stopping them from doing something tragic with that?
Yeah. My mom, this was like 5 years ago, had a pistol in her car. Somebody, I can't remember if they broke the window or she left it unlocked. I'm pretty sure they broke the window and took the gun. And like a year later, it was used in a murder. And so she has police show up to her house because the gun was registered to her.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And luckily she reported it stolen. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's a dark way to start this podcast.
Yeah, but again, we talk about going places organically. Yeah. I do feel like we got to where we ended up with, like that's not where I thought we were going to be going. If that enters
no. no.
What's
new with you?
Too, I watched the movie Man of Steel recently, and I rewatched. I'd seen it before, but the Superman movie that's like the beginning of the DCEU.
I like it. People,
I like it too. I mean, it's funny. Upon rewatch, it's weird. Like, there's parts about it that I liked better than the first time, but then there was also things that, like, very, very like nitpicky things where I was like, well, this doesn't actually make much sense. But again, you also have to take into context it's a superhero movie.
Yeah,
so
right.
I was kind of like, I can't really take this too seriously on some things. But
it's a funny concept being like, oh, that couldn't happen, and you're literally watching a movie about a alien with unlimited power.
Well, the big thing, so I'll give you the one example. This might be kind of funny. So obviously the alien race that Superman, Kal-El, whatever his name is from the planet Krypton, obviously not of Earth, but for some reason they speak the English language like that is just their, normal way of speaking. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then they're sending out, you to the point in the movie where they've, again, hacking into everybody's devices, but in different parts of the country or the world or whatever, you see them sending a message across in different languages. And so that was the moment that I realized, I'm like, hold on a second. So there's obviously other languages in this world that Superman lives in this movie, but them being from a totally different planet, they also speak English just like, Americans do on this earth.
Have you ever watched old war movies? Like a
Uh,
World War II movie from the 70s or something?
if
Or
I have it,
60s?
it was probably a long time ago.
The Germans all speak English. It's the best.
They probably just have like really dumb German accents, don't they?
It's 100%. They sound like American guys trying to do a German accent. It's great. I can't even remember what I was watching. This was a while ago, but that's funny you were watching a superhero movie. Laura and I watched the Thor movies, all of them.
So I've not seen any of the Thor movies, but I've heard that one of them is really good. One of them is like one of the worst Marvel movies. And I don't know if it's like terrible, because I know a lot of people
Love
think
and
all the
Thunder
Marvel
is not
movies are
good.
good. Love and Thunder is what one of them's called.
That's one of the last ones. It's not good. It's not good. It happens after they kill Thanos.
So it's like post-Endgame movie or whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not. The original Thor is so sick. And then the one right after that, Ragnarok, also sick.
Okay.
But then the last one, you could go. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy 2. It's just bad.
But I think this is just, I don't know if it's a getting older thing or if it's just the analytical mind that I have. I watch movies now, and I think I do the same thing with music, except I do think I get a little more enjoyment out of music than I do with movies. But when I'm watching a movie, I feel like I watch it with like I'm looking for things that are wrong with it type of stuff. You know what I mean? I hate having that mindset.
There's only one way that I get that way, and is if there's bad acting in the first 5 minutes, it sets me on the trajectory of finding everything that sucks about the movie. Okay. If I get drawn in immediately by the first character, I'm all in regardless of what happens. Like, I think Henry Cavill or whatever in Man of Steel is awesome, and I think his dad is awesome in the movie. So
when you say his dad, do you mean like Krypton dad or like
Krypton
human dad?
Okay, Krypton dad. I can't. What's his name? Russell Crowe. Is it Russell Crowe?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's.
I thought you meant his actual dad's name. I was like, hold on, he's talking about the actor. Yeah, it's Russell Crowe
or something. Is it Jor-El?
I thought it was Joel. Maybe it is Jor.
Joel, something like that. But yeah, you get drawn in immediately by people you like. So all the stuff that could happen in Man of Steel that people talk about, like, oh, well, this is dumb. I don't see any of it.
I just hate I pay it, especially because I'm not a huge superhero movie guy. I'm trying to get into more. It's why I rewatched that one because I like Superman in general. But I was looking for like the tropes, like the cliche type stuff. And one other thing that bothered me specifically about that movie is like all the dumbasses in the city that are just running, but they also are like before anything bad happens, they're just standing there watching like, like the alien ships come down, acting like nothing bad's actually going to happen. Or maybe they're just in awe that they just
I think
don't
you get
know what to
paralyzed
do with themselves.
with fear. Like,
but imagine also like when they're running, they're running in all the wrong directions. Like there might be a building that's falling directly towards them, but there's a road that goes in the opposite way in which the building is falling, and they choose to just run straight forward and get smashed.
Maybe it's better than getting killed by the aliens. Have you try to dive into their mind, dude? This is an alien spacecraft that just descended on your city. Who knows what those guys are going to be doing with their probes? You let them do it on somebody else. Think about it.
Yeah.
Speaking of music, are you a pop country kind of guy? No,
pop
you're like
country.
rock.
So you talk about like the bro country, like the new style country, right?
Kind of like Post Malone's country album.
No. So I've listened because I was in a car with somebody who enjoyed it. So I listened to a few songs by, I guess, I don't want to say by force because that's not really how it was, but just by being in the same vehicle as this person. So I heard a couple songs. They were all right, but I think one thing that bothers me, and I'll let you, speak on what you want to say about it, obviously. But one thing that bothers me about this new wave of like country is I feel like a lot of artists are just doing it because it's the cool thing to do right now, not because they actually like making country music. Like you see Jelly Roll. I think Jelly Roll is a pretty honest human being, but I feel like I don't know, something about when people shift genres for what feels like a commercial reason that just doesn't sit right with me. You know what I mean?
I guess I'm totally the opposite. With music, I just want something that makes me feel good, makes you happy, it's upbeat, it's positive.
You're a simple man. I'm
Post
too
Malone's
analytical when
new
it comes to
country
this
album hits like
nonsense.
I just was curious just because I know you're a lot more you think about things a lot more in music than I do. Like I hear something that sounds good, I play that thing on repeat repeatedly. So I've had F1 Trillion, the long bed edition, just on, and the name F1
The
Trillion.
long bed edition. Like he's just going full into it.
Oh, it's great. It's great. Every song on there is great. The song about where he talks about his F1 Trillion, he's got an F1 Trillion limousine. It's talking about all the rich, finer things he has because he has so much money. It's hilarious. It's a 10 out of 10. I loved every song. I was just curious if you had listened to it.
Here's another artist that kind of does the same thing, but kind of in a different way. And this is a guy that I enjoy, but there's part of me that like doesn't want to buy in fully because of the same reason I mentioned earlier, and that's Hardy. Do you listen to anything by Hardy?
Mm-mm.
So he's a country guy, but he's also he dips into the rock world a little bit, and he even like kind of screams in some of his songs. It's a very interesting, again, genre bending with country and rock and metal and that type of stuff. And it's cool the first time you hear it, at least to me. But then I'll go back and listen to stuff that's like Truck Bed. And again, I don't know if you even know the song Truck Bed, but like you go from like Sold Out to Truck Bed, and it's just like two totally different things. And for me, it's just like pick a lane. And I don't mind if you're an artist and like you do something that's kind of experimental, like as a one off. But then when it becomes like your whole identity, it just, I don't know. Again, maybe my brain is too small still to really give a good opinion on something like
No,
that.
I think you think about it much more analytically. This is a good way to
But it's
describe.
music. Music's about feeling, not analytics, of
Yeah,
course.
I think the way that I listen to music is I want to hear the person on the other end sound like they're having a blast making whatever they're making.
Yeah.
And Post Malone's a great example of that, but there's a bunch out there like whether they had fun making it or it means a lot to them, like you can tell that it took a lot from them, good, bad, whatever it was. And that's kind of where I turn. And I want music that makes me, I guess, feel a certain way. Like I don't want somebody talking about murdering. I used to be all into rap for some reason, listening to Put On for My City as a seventh grader coming out of Carmel High School. It's the most preposterous. And this is true for every little white guy that played
Oh
middle
yeah.
school
I
football
actually said this. I don't mean
anywhere.
to interrupt, but I said this on In Touch the other day. I was talking. I can't remember how I went down this path, but I was really into B.O.B. whenever I was in middle
So
school.
good. I got the magic in me.
And I still,
B.O.B. had
I'll
so
even
many
still listen to
bangers.
some of his songs today, but like it's just it doesn't hit the same way, and in general, just because my tastes are different. But it's just like I remember I even read you mentioned the song Magic for all my family members listening. You'll probably remember this during one of my family's Christmas parties. I can't even remember. Somebody had like this karaoke machine, and I got up. I can't even believe I had the freaking balls to do this. I would never do this again in a million years. I grabbed that microphone as like a seventh or eighth grader, maybe even six, I don't know, and just rap the hell out of Magic by B.O.B. And if there's
I love
footage
it.
out there, it's probably one of the cringiest things you could ever watch.
I'm sure. As it was the same way for me. Like I was 4 feet tall listening to Young Jeezy rap about
The
counting
Snowman.
money and running drugs and shooting people in Carmel. If you know anything about Indiana, like people look at Carmel as like no crime, like the safest place to live. All the rich people live there. That's where I grew up. So I don't know, but I like the sound of it. Now that has completely shifted. I hardly listen to rap at all unless it's some kind of I really like MGK for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So if he does a little bit of rapping, I'd listen to that. But yeah, I love thinking about all the middle schoolers around the country in the mid
That are going to hate their
2000s.
music taste in 10 years.
Oh
Their
yeah,
former
mid
music taste.
2000s, like Jeezy, Meek Mill, Eminem, not really, because
Eminem's if you can
he's an
cross
anomaly.
generations,
Yeah.
you're on a different level if you have, because his original fans were probably Gen Xers.
Yes.
And then you obviously even down to people like your age and my age. I mean, I feel like most people that listen to music, or at least that style of music, know who Eminem is and at least know a couple of songs of his.
Yeah, 1,000%. So he doesn't really fit the mold, but imagine some. Have you listened to? That was a funny laugh I just did. Have you listened to like? When's the last time you listened to rap? Like
Again,
contemporary rap music from right now,
that's a really good question.
like
Like
NBA
just
YoungBoy or
didn't even know that was a person. NBA
okay,
Young Boy. Like some of the names that they come up with nowadays they just sound like a random name generator. Like here's my rap name, NBA Young
yeah,
Boy. What?
yeah, yeah. So whenever you're got 5 minutes, just type in like if you go on Spotify, it's got like the rap hits or whatever. Think about obviously what we were listening to.
I'm about to pull it up. I'm not going to play any of the music because I don't want to get copyrighted, of course, but I want to see
Yeah,
some of the names of these
they're
contemporary rap
preposterous.
artists.
They're preposterous. Um, some of them I still like. Uh, some good songs that actually, but now they've got all that auto tune mumble rap kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So at least like, and this is so old man of me, but I know my music tastes weren't the best. But imagine 10 years from now, the middle schoolers of today listening to the songs that they used to like bang to. Like some of my favorite things to do, especially when I'm playing video games late at night, I'll go on Spotify and type in like mid 2000s rap just to live some of the nostalgia. But like 10 years from now, these kids pulling up some of these rappers that you're going to see and listen to some of these songs, you're going to look at yourself like, how stupid was I?
Young Gravy. I know he's somebody that's new and kind of out there. I'm familiar with that
He's
name.
out there. He doesn't he raps a little bit different. Like his lyrics aren't murdering and drug
Here we go.
dealing.
Let me read some of these real quick.
Young Gravy's a white
DD Osama. First of all, also tell me if you're familiar with any of them.
guy.
DD
I know.
Osama.
Yeah.
You know DD Osama?
Uh-huh.
Young Nudie.
Nudie.
Nudy.
No.
Sleazy World Go.
No.
What about Babytron?
Yeah.
Some of these names, we'll just stop there because I could just keep going, and I'm just gonna sound
They're,
like a dumbass white dude that's trying to
random
say
name generator is it's spot on. Spot on.
RNG, right?
Speaking of
That's random number generator.
speaking of music, and we like to cross over to sports sometimes.
Yeah.
How do we feel about, and maybe you talked about this last week, Pitbull in FIU? They unveiled the stadium, the Viva FIU. They got Mr. 305 in the middle of the field. The stadium.
So we didn't talk about the
Pitbull.
unveiling. I have talked about like the whole idea of him being the name of the stadium and like being affiliated with it, getting to do concerts there and stuff like that. I think it's awesome. And I'll say this right now.
So dope, dude. It is so dope.
Pitbull songs, they're all kind of the same, but here's the one thing. There are some artists that I have a soft spot for. Because even though Pitbull raps about the same crap in every single song that he puts out.
He's the quintessential hype, feel good. He speaks to me on like, you can't put that on and be sad.
You can't.
It's impossible. Any song he's made, you cannot be sad.
You can't listen to Feel This Moment, the song I think he did with Christina Aguilera, I think, and not think of the NBA Finals from whatever year it was, wherever he would go, playoffs.
Yes, bro. Everywhere. Everywhere. It's so I think that's so cool, and hopefully we start to get that in other places. Because I think I don't think it would be as cool at say like a Georgia or something that has traditions and has all this stuff. But for a school like FIU that's kind of in the wilderness, they're searching for an identity. They're searching for something that recruits can latch onto, people can latch onto to go to the school. And for someone that's so Miami, he's Mr. 305, to take over and be a part of that, I think it's so awesome, man. Viva FIU in the end zone is so funny and so awesome. And their first game there, they played Central and won by 70.
Yeah.
They beat Central Michigan like 60-2. It's awesome.
I can't wait
Power
for whenever, because I do believe off the pull. Well, keep saying what you're saying. I'm going to pull up something real quick.
I just think it's cool. And I was trying to think, I don't know, Indiana's like right on the border of, do you need something like that or not? Because you're in the Big Four, but you're also looking for something to give yourself a jolt. And I don't think they really have, like, John Mellencamp wouldn't bring the same juice that Mr. 305 brings.
I think they've already got the juice that they need, at least for now, with the current coaching staff that's on campus.
But it's funny to think, like, what kind of thing like that could they do?
Yeah. And I don't think you'll see a lot of it happen with the power programs, but
no.
Obviously Indiana is one of the first that comes to mind just because they're so historically bad. Like, do you need that? And when it comes to tradition, like, they really don't have anything that jumps out at people. I mean, yeah, they can eventually start winning, but they also, even if they do that, they still don't have the, like, they're never going to have jump around like Wisconsin has.
Yeah,
they're never going to have the wave that Iowa has.
Enough time hasn't passed to where they can create a tradition like that on something that's repeatable. Like, the wave at Iowa just happened naturally and organically. But this is an interesting thought. If you're Indiana, let's say we decide, I don't care, do we need it or not? Forget about that. We need something like this. Let's brainstorm for the athletic department. I think this would be a great time for Dustin. Dustin's brain, I think, works so uniquely for something like this. But what kind of things would its program like Indiana, to bring a little pizzazz, what kind of things could you bring in?
Like, promotional wise, like something unique and totally off the wall?
Off the wall, out of nowhere, Mr. 305-esque that can inject some life.
The one thing I've heard people say time and again, and they've done this, they even did this year, but I don't really know how you could work it in with, like, the actual in-season stuff. And that's people in general. This isn't really that creative. It's kind of a cop-out answer, honestly. But, like, just concerts at the stadium. Because, again, that does nothing for the team itself, though. So, again, that's probably not even really what we're looking for.
Didn't they have
Kane Brown, if you're thinking of that, Kane Brown did a concert back in the spring.
Yeah, it was Kane Brown. Also, this is important for you. I heard today that Theo Vaughn is coming to Bloomington.
Really? To just do a stand-up show at
he's doing it at the IU auditorium. Look it up.
Really? Okay. I probably won't go to that because I'd be, like, amongst college kids. And I did see Theo Vaughn back in January a couple years ago.
Okay.
Here in Louisville.
For what it's worth, when I was a junior or senior at IU, Kevin Hart came to the auditorium. And there was a good amount of college kids, but it was a majority just people from Indianapolis that went down to see him. So if you're worried about being amongst the college kids for someone like Theo Vaughn, I'm sure you'd get your fair share, 40%, 50%, but he's got such a wide, like, he's my mom's favorite person in the world. Like,
really?
She thinks he's hilarious. And he's also so honest and weird and himself.
I strive to have, and I think I have it to an extent, but obviously he's in his 40s and I'm, I'm 27 years old. I hope by the time I'm Theo's age, maybe even before then, that I can have just, I don't even know if it's carelessness. I don't know if it's the balls, whatever you want to say. I just hope I have the ability to just be 100% myself in any, whether it be here, a regular conversation that's not being recorded, any sort of day-to-day activity. I feel like I do a pretty good job of that in general, but there's always, I think right now for me, what it is, there's this insecurity of me being 27 and older people not respecting something I might have to say if I give my honest opinion on something. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Something I deal with still every day. I've gotten so much better at it. Keeping up with this ego that you have, whether it's ego in public, ego that's real, or just the ego that you have, like, I want people to respect me, whatever it is, like trying to chase it all the time. Eventually, there's a day that you wake up and you're like, what am I doing? And I think I've actually gotten to that, to be honest.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it happens in waves. Like when I got done playing, I think I've talked about this. It took me a long time to get past my identity of being a football player. Like that's who I was. I didn't have anything else. My identity was Mitchell Page, the football player. This is what I'm really good at. Respect me because of this. Not respect me because of me, but respect me because I do this. And it took me a long time to be able to, Franklin,
We
not
love Frank.
not the time. It took me a long time to get to I'm Mitchell and respect me because I'm Mitchell. And then the final step is I'm Mitchell, respect me or don't, I don't care. I'll still respect you. And I think that's kind of the final stage. Well, there's obviously a bunch of stages. I'm definitely not to where I want to be in terms of that. Like you always have little relapses. The ego always is trying to push its way out. But as you get older, you start like different things start becoming important. You realize that all the money in the world isn't going to change you, or getting this or that to happen for you, this car, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's there are
I do
different.
feel like I don't know if I've ever been a very materialistic person. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think money, I think I had to learn at a very young age. Whenever I knew that this is the type of thing I wanted to do for a living, I don't even know what the proper job title is. I'm a producer in the afternoons. I guess I'm a podcast host on Hoosier Illustrated, whatever you want to call it. But I knew that whatever side of the field I would be on in this industry in general, I knew money was always going to be a little harder to come by compared to being like a doctor or something like that, something that makes a whole lot more. So I think I learned very early on that like I can't be a paper chaser because I'm not in the right business for this, even if I wanted to be. And I've gotten very comfortable with just living by my means. And I think that's also helped me be pretty smart with my finances in general as well, just kind of being always living not paycheck to paycheck, but just knowing where everything goes, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. And I definitely went through a period in my life where I did not think that way. I was trying to keep up with the Joneses. I wanted to do everything that everybody else was doing. And they had been working for 6 years by the time I was done playing ball. And yeah, I signed a $3.5 million contract with the Chargers, but that ain't guaranteed. I got maybe 50,000 of it. Doesn't go very far. And then I went to play in Germany and made 800 euros a month. And
What is
then I
that in
came,
dollars? Do you know
yeah,
it off the top of your head?
it's like 920 a month. Now everything was paid for. So I went on that awesome trip. I still came out like 4 euros in the green. But
That's awesome
that
though.
was 9 months of my life that was just a net like neutral. I didn't make any money. And then I go and sell orthopedic devices, making nothing. And it just takes time to where you start to get to a point where you're making a little bit more money. And I was chasing the Joneses for years and did some dumb things, and you pay for it now. So I've had to learn that I'm good with just being me. I'm good with what I have. There are very few things that I really truly care about and need to do. And it's a freeing feeling to realize that, but then obviously you have to find a way to go make it happen and get yourself back to where you need to be.
Let me ask you this. How much of your, I guess, not caring about yourself attitude, I hope this doesn't come off as an obvious question, but I do want to ask it anyway. Once you had your daughter, how much of your mindset shifted to like, you know what, none of this ego stuff matters now. It's all about her and what she needs and wants and all that type of stuff.
Um, More, but I think it more so happened when I met Laura.
Okay.
I was so not ready for that. And I've told her this. That's why I feel comfortable talking about it on this. I was kind of on a roll, like feeling myself big time, um, just what it was. And she came out of nowhere, and you immediately realize, like, okay, everything else I was doing is stupid. maybe don't do that anymore, and let's try to not mess this one up. And your mindset has to change quickly. Now, it was a long journey because had a big ego. That's just reality. It was a long way to go to get to the bottom of the mountaintop that I felt like I was on. But over however many years it's been now, 4 or 5, since I met her, I would say that is more what spurred the change. And this is kind of an interesting question. So we talked about, before we started recording, we were talking about, like, I had the long drive today, so I start watching these stupid YouTube videos, and they pose interesting questions, thought-provoking questions, to where I try to get more worldly. I try to think a little more outside the box. I don't want to be stuck in just a rat race of make money, make money, make money, die. Like, that's your whole life cycle. You just chase money, chase money, chase money. I want to be well-rounded. Yeah, money's important because it pays for bills, but the most important thing for me, and I think when I went to Germany, I learned this, learned that this is the way I wanted to operate. People over there work to live, as opposed to a lot of people in America live to work. So I realized quickly that I didn't need all the money in the world. I needed enough to do the very few things that I like, and maybe a little on the side that I can throw in an investment and eventually stop working because no one likes to work. But that was a lot to say. One of the interesting questions that I heard a couple times today is, forget religion. When do you become like a man? When do you become a man? Like, in the Jewish religion, it's defined, right? You have your bat
Yeah.
mitzvah or bar mitzvah, whatever it is. That sounds terrible. Very,
I know. I know. No, I don't
it's
think
one
you're
of the
being
two.
offensive or anything.
Yeah, it sounded very like
Americanized is the
throwaway.
best way to put it.
Yeah, I don't know which one it is. I've been to both.
I've heard
And
different versions of the
I've
way it's
been to
said.
both, whichever one it is for the boy or even for the girl. It's like when you
I
become,
didn't even know there was a difference. I thought they were the same thing.
it's bar and bot, and one of them is boy and one is girl. And it's when you become a woman or when you become a man. It's defined. Now, I think that's early as a 13-year-old, but I'm curious what your opinion is. Like, what are some things that happen to you? Because it's not defined in America. And I think that
I do think it is kind of defined, at least, technically, like 18, you become an adult, that type of thing.
yeah,
If
but when
that's
do
what
you
you're
become a
getting at.
man?
I think it varies depending on your circumstances. I mean, some people, like I said, they have to grow up early. Maybe they lose their parents at a very early age, something like that. And they have to maybe not raise themselves, but they get raised by somebody who wasn't originally their parent. And then they're kind of, in a sense, raising themselves in a way that they never would have imagined doing so. I think it's just, it evolves based on, like, levels of maturity, how quickly that type of stuff happens. And again, the circumstances that every human being goes through, because there'll be some people who never have to lift a finger until, like, maybe they're 35, 40 years old. If they're, and I don't think there's anybody listening to this podcast that fits this category, like living in their parents' basement because maybe their parents didn't know how to, make them go do their own thing. And so at the same time, the kid took advantage of that and never knew how to grow up or grow up, whatever you say, whatever it may be. And so there's different levels of that. Some people never turn into a man or a woman, when you think about it from that perspective. So I think it's a wide variable of things.
I think it's interesting that, because my first thought was the same as yours. Like, you think of
Okay.
someone that's not a man as someone that lives in their basement and never, quote unquote, grows up, has their own stuff. But I'm going to argue it's a little further, because I was,
Okay.
again, thinking in the car and heard a lot of people say it this way. And I thought it was interesting. This is not my idea initially, but kind of molded into what I believe it is. So I want to preface by saying this is not 100% my idea. I'm not some philosophizer. That's not the right word, I know, philosopher. But it, because I was thinking about, as I was listening to this, I was thinking about myself and some of the people in my life. And
that's what great podcasts do, right?
yeah, some of the,
they make you think internally.
exactly. So And this one in particular, and I actually talked to my wife about this too. This is a podcast about Shia LaBeouf, or with Shia LaBeouf and John Bernthal. Do you know who that is?
I'm familiar with Shia LaBeouf, but not the other guy.
Okay, so have you ever seen the movie Fury, the
I don't
tank
think
movie?
so.
Okay,
I
how
don't
about
think so.
Walking Dead?
I know of The Walking Dead, the TV series, but I've not
Yeah,
watched
okay.
any of it.
So this is the guy that's the cop that's not the main sheriff. He's like
Okay.
the deputy guy. But they're buddies. They made Fury together. And this is coming off like a year prior to this interview. Shia LaBeouf beat the crap out of his wife, like smoked her. So no one respects him for a year. And he's done all this work on himself. And he starts to like internally realize that everything he's doing is super destructive, blah, blah, blah. It's a 2-hour interview. There's a lot. I'm not going to summarize it all here, but he starts talking about like, when do you become a man? And he says that I'm only just now becoming a man. I had all the money. I had all the fame. I had all the girls. I had everything. I had the world at my doorstep, but I never had any responsibility. And I never had anyone that looked to me to get them through the day, or someone that I was responsible to be the best I could be. And us talking about like, did I start to think differently when my daughter was here, and me thinking, well, no, it's mostly my wife. I think they pair really well together, because for the first time in my life, when I met Laura, I've thought about someone other than myself, which is so embarrassing to admit. I was what, 27?
But
It
that's
took
I
me,
think that's normal for most people.
yeah. And so it's just interesting. Like, I have friends right now that are older than me that are still children, that think, act, behave like children. And some of them have children. Some of them have wives and they're happily married. They don't do anything. They don't cheat on their wife. They don't beat their wife. They don't do anything. They just go to work and do what they have to do. But they don't take responsibility for what's happening. They don't take responsibility for their relationship with their wife or their relationship with their kids. And their kids are still young, so who knows? I can attest it's hard right now when the baby's 3 months old and can't really do anything, and it's hard to create a relationship with that. But um, it just made me. I was just curious what your opinion was, and I think that everyone's kind of the same when they ask this, like, or when they get this question. It's sometime when you have to start growing up as a general thing. But I was just curious. That was one of the things I was really pondering today, is like, I'm in the infancy stages of being a man. And as I gain more responsibilities and can't just go do whatever I want to do all the time, and
Yeah.
can't go play golf on Saturday morning sometimes because we need help here, or I need to pick up a concrete job because we need a little bit more money. And I'm doing a gravel job right now that requires a ton of manual labor that's hard as crap. And all I'm doing is thinking like, God, this stinks, but I have to do it. And so I've just seen, even in the last, since she was born, 3 months, just a rapid acceleration in that. But you start to think about yourself and kind of the changes you go through. I don't know, the seasons of life. And I know that's super heady. I'm trying to not be very heady and just get out what I'm saying
I couldn't
without
even tell you
rambling.
what heady means right now.
It's like you're like
Like too generic or
no,
something?
it's like you're in your, like, you're thinking too much. It's there's
Thinking, I don't think there's such thing as, I mean, I guess you can overthink, but I don't think you're doing that, at least from my perspective
yeah.
right now.
I think what I had was 8 hours in the car of listening to a bunch of people provide a bunch of different
It's
perspectives.
easy to
But
get lost in your thoughts, man. I don't think it's, well, yeah, there's probably a level where it becomes dangerous. And I do think, and maybe you're a victim of this today, because I think I fall victim to it a lot, of overstimulating yourself when it comes to, and maybe this wasn't so much entertainment, but it can be entertaining, whether it be podcast. Maybe you go
oh
listen to
gosh,
music
yeah.
after that, especially when you have a bunch of free time back to back and you just get lost in the different things that we're meant to consume. And again, not all of it's bad for you. In fact, a lot of it can be really good for you. But I do think it's probably important to, and because again, I've fallen victim to this many a time, maybe even today, if I'm being honest, because I do feel really burnt out, and especially in this world that I'm in, where not only do I like to listen to a lot of media, but I'm also creating my own version of that. Some of you may think it's a joke, but it still exists out there in the YouTube realm, wherever it may be, Spotify. I guess we're coming full circle here, but I do think there is a level where it can really kind of fry your brain, and I guess that's really just about it. Like, to where a
Yeah.
point you kind of have to remove yourself from it.
Yeah.
And
And I think I was like, shoot, 5 months ago, man, I tried to kind of mask it, but I was in a bad spot mentally. Like, just,
so 5 months ago, like, that was right before your daughter was born. I
yes.
don't know. I'm not trying to equate everything to, you
No,
having a
but
child, but
it's relative because you get down to those final months where you don't really know what to expect. You're scared to death about what could happen. Um, Money will never be right in that scenario. You're stressed about it constantly. You're consuming, and that's kind of where I fall into exactly what you're talking about. That's what kind of sparked this is you're trying to find things that, okay, this is what someone else did in my scenario. And you're starting to try to take from everybody instead of just coming up with this stuff and formulating your own way to do it. And it burned me out so quickly to where I just felt frozen with all of these individually good ideas. But sometimes the sum of the parts doesn't equal the positive momentum that you're looking for. And it not like I was in a terrible place or anything, but there was some anxiety, uh, serious fear, and you almost feel like you're crippled. You can't go out and do that. I wasn't as good at home. I wasn't as good at work, and it kind of seeps over into everything. And that's when I started kind of taking some time to sort out, okay, what really is important to me, and that's when you start. Maybe I went too far again today, but
no,
you
you
start
did. You
getting into,
absolutely. I need to hear that stuff.
yeah,
Trust me, because I try to remind myself of those things, but it's also good to hear it from somebody's perspective who has dealt with it in a very kind of severe way. I mean, and again, I know you're trying to. No one wants to seem weak, and really, especially men. I feel like we don't like to be seen as weak, but I can just tell from hearing what you're saying that even though it probably, like, you from your perspective don't want it to come off as bad, you probably were in a genuinely bad space just because maybe you just, again, it's hard for me to fully relate, but I guess it's more so me just not wanting to be there as well. But how else is there to, what is the point that I'm dancing around here? Because I feel like I'm getting lost in what I was trying to say with it. But
I'm gonna let you work it out because it's important. I don't think we talk about stuff enough as men.
yes. Go, yeah, you're getting to what I want to, I guess, was trying to say, and that's like, we bottle all of our feelings, our thoughts, emotions, and this isn't probably every man. I don't want to speak for everybody. I'm speaking for what I feel like is the majority of the male race, whatever you want to call it, just men in general. And that's, we don't like to put ourselves in situations where we feel weak or we feel vulnerable and all that type of stuff. And then when all that festers for a significant amount of time, especially when you have huge life changes, that type of stuff, maybe it's new job, maybe it's, having a child, whatever it may be, it can get to a point to where you can make bad decisions, things that you wouldn't make if you were in a good state of mind. You can do, I don't, again, I've not been in that deep dark of a place, I don't think, before. But again, now I'm starting to feel like I'm going down a hole that I don't want to get down, especially towards the end of the podcast. But
Yeah,
and maybe this is my own fear right now of trying to be vulnerable on this own freaking show. where other people can listen to our own thoughts. But this is again part of why we do this. This is kind of an outlet for not only me and you, but Dustin as well, to kind of just talk about things sometimes.
Yeah, and I bet he has an interesting perspective on stuff. Like, I bet he's been in some dark places as much as either of us. He's been divorced. He's seen the darkness. He knows about it more than we do in that aspect. And I think the main point of all of this is what I learned is that we're all going through kind of the same stuff, right? And I opened up with saying life is hard. And I've heard another person that this was a former gang member. He was asked, "When did you become a man?" And he didn't give an exact year, but he said early. I had to become a man when I realized no one was coming to save me. And I thought, first of all, that's terrifying. I'm definitely not there. I think I have a pretty good support system that would help me, but it's a pretty good definition of it. Like, no one's coming to help us. This is our life. We got to live it. And we're all kind of going through this, man. And I think that as fun as this podcast can be, I think that we've
had some fun moments the past few weeks. We really have had some funny moments.
We need to talk about it more because it only gets harder as we get older. And it's not, I think at the end of it, it's good to be vulnerable. And then it's also good to say, and that's the reality. Now go figure it out. Right? Like, I'm not looking for, when I say I was in a bad place, I was sad, I was anxious, blah, 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 blah. I'm not looking for pity. It's good to talk about because it exists. And as you said, it makes it easier for you to think about it and from your perspective. And then you realize, that was the general you, I realize in my situation, like, okay, this is my reality. I'm down and it feels like I can't get out of it. So how do I get out of it? Right? There's two aspects of being a man or being a mature adult, whatever it is. I think it's hard, and you got to be strong to be able to admit that sometimes it's not easy to get up in the morning. But then it's also, after you acknowledge how hard it is, do it anyway, kind of deal. So that was a very heady. When you're done, look up the definition of heady, because that's exactly what this has been for me.
I'm going to make it. I've already decided that's now the name of the podcast episode, because that'll just help me remember what we talked about.
Yeah, it's a little deep probably for some people, and I think it'll turn some people off and turn some people away.
And that's okay. I mean, because there's probably people who do listen to every episode, and that's probably our family members. And then there's people who probably pick and choose episodes here and there, depending on, the level of free time that they have. And again, not every episode is for everyone, but this is, again, no matter, we said this from maybe not the beginning, but we said it pretty early on in the early episodes of Out of Touch, is that even if this podcast never becomes anything more than what it is right now and has been since the beginning, which I don't want it to ever change, like the foundation of it, but this will always be kind of a bit of a video journal of our lives in one way or another. Even though there are times where we don't necessarily talk about every aspect of our lives, it's still going to be a bit of a snapshot of however long this podcast ends up going on for, of what both you, myself, and Dustin were doing, throughout this time period. And that's why we do this.
I would love to compare what I was just saying to the way that I was acting episode 1 a year ago. Like, they're just going to see such a difference. I would imagine. Yeah. My voice is the same. My cadences are the same. I have
location's different.
Yeah, location's different.
You also did the first. I went and saw. I didn't listen to it, but I saw like a photo or like a screenshot. You did the first episode in your car, I'm pretty sure.
Heck yeah, that used to be a mainstay, dude.
That was a pretty, because you were traveling very much back and forth from wherever it was you were going in Charleston, whatever it might have been. You were all over the place.
Yeah, and having Margaret has eliminated some of that travel, probably to the detriment of some sales in my job, but I don't care. So,
You're still living.
yeah,
You're not going to be taking that sale to your grave.
yeah, nobody's gonna care. That was another big thing that I was listening to today. Is like 2 generations from now, people may talk about you, but like think about your boss. Like, oh, they're on you because you don't make enough calls or you don't set enough meetings or blah blah blah, whatever it is. Nobody's gonna care. Like,
Nope.
nobody.
Not at
Is it
all.
really that big of a deal? And yeah, you want to be good at your job. You want to be the best. You want to do as best you can. Sure, but it's also important to have in the back of your mind, like, really, is this really
It
out?
is.
You're gonna yell at me for that? No.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap up this episode. Good stuff. I think I've said this before when we've gone down a path like this, but sometimes it's hard. It's tough. Like I just said, it's tough to be vulnerable sometimes, but I hope we go down this path more often, especially when it's all three of us. Like this usually happens with the one-on-one combos. I'd
Yeah.
like to see what happens when we all three do it. And I think we've done it before. It's just a lot more of a rarity when it is all three of us.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I've got a couple
ahead.
long drives ahead of me for next week, so who knows what I might dive into.
All right. And if you want to comment on any of this, if you want to share any of your experiences dealing with this, man or woman, you can do that at 502-830-9195. And I mean this 100% when I say this. I would love to, whether I know who you are or not, maybe it'd be more comfortable if you didn't, if you're someone who listens that doesn't know us. I don't know. Or maybe the other way around. I would love, for those of you who may have the guts to do so, to hear somebody who has dealt with a similar version of what we were talking about. And again, maybe I'm asking a lot of people. Again, I don't mean to make it's never a demand to call in. I want to make that clear as well too. So anyways, that number again, though, if you want to, is 502-830-9195. And I'm not even going to play the outro music today. I'm just going to let this bad boy in. So until next week, this has been another episode of Out of Touch.